It has been so long since we've had a really successful indie game franchise that has come through and finally they're getting the recognition they deserve. Aragami is one of the most beautifully crafted stealth games that have come out in the last 5 years, and I am so excited that we're getting a sequel. And yes, at Gamescom there wasn't all that much that was that special shown off to us, but Aragami 2 came out with a lot of gameplay, a lot of info, and this is what a co-op stealth game should be. But let me give you a little bit of a backstory before we talk about the new sequel. As I mentioned, this is a series that is based around stealth, and that's really its main USP. And it's been so well defined and so well focused on that it's one of the best stealth games out there. Aragami 1 came out on the 4th of October 2016, and it came out to some pretty good success. It wasn't by all means blowing up to be the AAA status, but it was fairly successful for the first game of this developer. Overall, people really seemed to enjoy it. It wasn't anything too complicated, it has its simplistic mechanics, and it really stuck to it. It really focused so much on stealth, and that was about it. It looked beautiful, the art style was really something else, and this is something that's going to come back later in this video because they've started to slightly change it when it comes to the next one in the franchise. But you are a ninja, an assassin as you will, and you have to go through missions using these shadow mechanics, using something called shadow essence to teleport from shadow to shadow, using them to refill your shadow essence in order to become more powerful. When you're in the darkness, you gain that shadow essence, and when you get into harsh light, you start to lose it. And it's all about balancing that, being able to use it to teleport from one shadow to another, get behind enemies, assassinate them from the back using stealth kills, because by all means you cannot get stuck out in the light. One really cool thing I think this game does is try and immerse you in the world with that beautiful art style, and that is only accentuated by the lack of HUD. There is nothing there, it's just you, your character, and that's it. Everything you need can be told to you by on screen using in-game mechanics. For example, this shadow essence that you need will fill up and empty out by the light on your cape, and I love how they've done that. As I mentioned, you can't outright fight any of the enemies in this game. They are brutal, and if you get caught out, they will kill you in one hit. So this forces you to use stealth to go into the shadows. Something I've really found annoying with something like Assassin's Creed is it's so easy just to go out and counter people, counter one after another, get kill after kill. Even the later games in the Thief franchise started to do this, where it just became so easy to kill people outright that it meant that stealth wasn't really needed eventually. But you have to in this game, there is no other option, and that's why it's been so refined down to a T. I had a lot of fun playing through bits of the original Aragami, and I can definitely see why there's a sequel in the works. But what is this sequel all about? Well, at Gamescom we got some massive bits of gameplay showing us, and have they boosted up that graphical fidelity. They moved a little bit further away from that cel-shaded thing and gone to more of a cartoony realism, but I think it looks absolutely beautiful. The game is releasing in September. It's very, very soon to when I'm making this video, but it's set 100 years after the story events of the original first game. It looks like the budget has gone up massively since the release of Aragami 1, and well, of course, as you can see, it looks way more bloody. I think they're trying to focus a little bit more on the RPG elements. You have almost a hometown, a home village that it is yours to protect. You have to go through the valley, freeing it from the terrible clans that have taken over. But this home village that you have, you can get missions, meet characters, and progress yourself, getting new abilities that you can learn and use on the quests. Some of the cool things that I noticed from the gameplay is the much more use of cover systems, using more animations for movements like high jumps. You can now double jump, you can climb up ledges using a bit of parkour, and of course using those shadow powers that you had before from going from shadow to shadow and teleporting. Now you can use something called shadow leaps, which boosts you even further when you're up high in the rafters, using way more vertical map than ever before. And speaking of the maps, this is where it gets exciting. The maps are so much bigger than the original game. Whilst they worked for what the game was and its simplicity at the time, I think it was time to step it up a notch, and definitely, as we'll get onto later, when you've got more players in there, you need these bigger maps. It gives you way more variation, whether you're going down on the ground, high up in the trees or on the rooftops, or you're traversing between the two. And this is why the movement is so much slicker and faster. You can really tell that the new maps and the new movement system complements each other perfectly. But watch out, because the AI is also way better. In the other game, I can't lie, whilst it was deadly if you get caught out in the open, they could kill you in one hit. Now the AI is way cleverer. They will chase you through the map. They will traverse with you. They can use all these movement systems themselves. Before, it was so easy to run and get away from anyone that was chasing you, but no, not this time, especially with way more variation in the type of enemies that you're going to be killing. Whether it's just the normal brutes, or you're coming up against this mad fire guy that can spot you from way further back. It is now a choice between how you handle each variation of enemy. And the choices get even better. You see, in the first one I mentioned, it focused so much on stealth. I think as their first game, that was all they really wanted to work on, to try and refine that to the best of their ability, and it worked perfectly. But now they're starting to branch out with the bigger maps, the more variation in enemies, and the bigger movement system. But now there is a full combat system that can be utilized within the game. Now stealth is just an option. It is not a necessity. Whilst it will be the better thing in most situations, sometimes you gotta get out there, take your sword out and go into the duel, using completely new combat mechanics in order to take down your foe, whether it's using just the sword or using your shadow powers in order to help you. And yes, they are back in a big way. Whether it's using the shadow pull to grasp an enemy and pull them to your position, or putting down a hologram of yourself to distract them while you sneak around the side, it is all up to you. You can even turn invisible for a short amount of time and sneak around the enemy's path. But you know what the best thing about all this is? The game is co-op, and I have been waiting so long for a proper stealth co-op game. You see, when it comes to big stealth games these days, you've got Splinter Cell, who haven't made a game in a long time. You've got Thief, who tried to reboot and didn't exactly do it to the best of their abilities, and you've got Assassin's Creed. Now, we know what's happened with Assassin's Creed at the moment. It's kind of moved completely away from that stealth assassin side, so hopefully Aragami can take over that with a more story-driven linear thing, but with other players, bringing in that co-op, working together as ninjas in order to complete these quests. And whilst there was co-op in the first Aragami, now you can have full online co-op with multiple players side by side, making up your team and moving through the missions together, becoming ninjas with 1, 2, 3, even 4 other players. And I cannot wait to get into it. But please let me know what you think down below. Do you think Aragami 2 is a worthy success to the first game? Or if you haven't played it, I definitely recommend it's something you go and pick up if you can find it cheap enough. As I mentioned, I'm going to be covering this as soon as it comes out, and it's coming out in the next couple of weeks, so we don't have too long to wait for that. But please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, leave a dislike if you didn't. But until then, I will see you in the next one.